Hey there, welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is our new moon report. We have a new moon in Aquarius happening on February 11th, 2021, and we're going to go over it week by week and talk about the major themes that are accompanying this new moon. Don't want to get ahead of myself. And also the start of the Chinese New Year. We are now coming into the year of the metal ox 2021. And so I'm going to weave a little bit of that into this report as well. So welcome. Thanks for joining me. I made a couple of attempts to record this video earlier today and it just wasn't happening. And this is the first time that I've gone on video or live or anything when the sun has gone down, and boy, the lighting in my office really sucks. So it's not ideal, but I've had to shift some things around so that I have at least some lighting to work with. And now you get to see what I get to see every day as I sit at my desk. And work on these reports and work on the readings for y'all. So we are about to come into new moon in Aquarius, like I said, and the year of the metal ox. And, Chinese astrology is not my area of expertise, but there are some very interesting, there's some interesting overlaps here when we talk about some of these archetypes, depending on the cultural context that we find them in. There are some things that are similar. So we're going to be talking about this new moon in Aquarius, setting the intention for this next lunar cycle for the 4 weeks. There are some significant things that are going to happen within the context of this particular lunar cycle, and because it's the beginning of the Chinese New Year, we are looking at some fundamental archetypal resonance that's going to be with us throughout the year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that first with the year of the metal ox. So the ox is the second sign in the Chinese zodiac. We're still working with a cycle of 12 in the Chinese astrology and the Chinese zodiac, just like in Western astrology as well. 12 signs, 12 archetypes that represent different traits with people depending on when you were born. And your Chinese astrology sign is based on specifically the year that you were born. So it's not as much based on the location and the exact date and time. It's more just about the year that you were born, and the cycles are much longer and much more vast in Chinese astrology. So the ox, it's very similar to Taurus, right? We are talking about an energy that's about dependability and about determination and hard work. And when we're talking about metal, we're talking about a 5-element theory in Chinese philosophy. And I know I have a small amount of factual knowledge here, just having a training in shiatsu and tai chi and qigong. And so working with the 5-element theory and philosophy with those particular modalities, it's all brought into it. And if you study Chinese medicine and acupuncture, then you know what I'm talking about as well. And so studying shiatsu, studying tai chi and qigong, I have a little bit of working knowledge, but suffice it to say, the element of metal does correlate to the season of autumn. It correlates to the color of white, and it has a very yin type of energy. So contracting, internalized, focused, right? These are the elements that are associated with metal. And if you really get into the 5-element theory in Chinese astrology, you see how all of the elements interact with each other, either in forcing them and or inhibiting them. And so that's something that you can easily find a lot of information on out there on the interwebs. So with the metal ox, the year of the metal ox, this is really when the work begins. This is when we are going to be doing the work on ourselves. We are going to be doing the work that will allow us to cultivate and then harvest something of value when we have put in the appropriate amount of time and determination. It's a very conservative energy because there is nothing flashy about the ox. It is very much a very simple, basic idea of hard work yields results. And when we are talking about a yin energy, we're talking about Venus. Venus is attached to the ox and to the metal element as well. Again, it's about material value and specifically what value we gain in direct proportion to the energy that we put in. And so it's not going to be a flashy year like 2020 was, where there was a lot of disruption, a lot of change, a lot of passion that was incited in a lot of different ways. This year is going to be the year about the work. And if we are not taking responsibility for what we are cultivating within ourselves, within our lives, in what we value, then we're not going to see a return. And so this is something to keep in mind for this whole year. And then specifically with this new moon, that is part of this cycle starting, because this new moon in Aquarius, of course, is the beginning and the beginning point to set intentions for this next couple weeks about personal growth, right? We're talking about the sun and we're talking about the moon, right? The luminaries that represent the expressive, expansive part of ourselves, the creative expression of the sun, and the moon being our internal emotional landscape, how we feel, our ability to intuitively connect to those around us, to the situation around us, to be adaptable, to be fluid. So when those two aspects come together, this is where we create from. And so we are creating a new dynamic within us. And late Aquarius, this degree, 24-degree Aquarius, so we are rounding up for the Sabian symbol. This new moon is about rectifying in some ways or coming to terms with the challenges that we've experienced and putting aside our passion around those things in order to teach from a place of very deep wisdom. So 2020 was about a lot of passion, a lot of rage, and a lot of energy was brought up to the surface and expressed in so many different forms and for so many different reasons. And this new moon and this year of the metal ox is really shifting the focus now to not so much ignore that passion or to avoid that passion, but to not let it be the primary focus for our activity. And specifically that those of us who have experienced supreme challenges over the last year specifically are now in a position where we can learn something tremendous from those challenges and be able to settle into the spiritual lessons that came from those challenges, and also be able to pass that wisdom on and teach others based on those experiences. Not everybody is going to be in the same place about these things. So we're going to look at the chart here eventually, and we're going to go week to week. But one thing, there's a couple things I want to talk about with this new moon in particular, which is happening tomorrow, 2:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 11th. Now, we also have Mercury still retrograde in Aquarius, and this is, about protecting ourselves, protecting our, and safeguarding our individual rights under complex social pressures. Okay, Mercury going retrograde, it's not the clearest view, but what it is allowing for is a review period of what it means to be free, what it means to be free thinking, what it means to move freely, right? Because Mercury is not just about the mind, it's about movement. The third house is about short-term movement. It's about our commute. It's about our immediate environment in the third house. And so Mercury being the traditional ruler of the third house, we're also talking about the movement and our ability to move freely. And so we're going back over this territory in Aquarius specifically about what it means to be part of a collective, what it means to move freely as an individual within a collective situation. And in particular today is about the need for protection, either in a literal sense with our movement and our mind, but also an astral protection, guardian angels, elementals, really protecting ourselves literally from black magic that is in under the description of this Sabian symbol in Dane Rudger's astrological mandala book. So it's something else to keep in mind as we are overcoming our passions and teaching deep wisdom in terms of our experience. We also are reviewing what it means to protect ourselves and what is valuable to us, and really consider the need for protection when it comes to our thoughts, our communication, and our ability to share those things freely as well. So another really beautiful transit that's happening today with the new moon, let's just look at the chart. How about that? I'm going to minimize my face here as much as we all want to look at my cute face. We are going to look at the chart here. So this is actually for the 10th. Let's skip ahead to tomorrow. Yes. So, and we'll do a couple hours back. So we're right at the time. Yes. All right, very close here. We can see here now the sun and the moon at 23 to 24 degrees Aquarius. Okay. Now, there's another really beautiful transit that's happening today, which is that Jupiter and Venus are going to meet each other as well in Aquarius. You can see everything kind of bunching up here in Aquarius. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, here we go with Saturn as well. So it looks like Saturn is in Capricorn in the position that it where this little dot is, but that is Pluto. So everything is we have this beautiful stellium in Aquarius, right? The future, our innovation, where we're headed. And so Venus and Jupiter also meeting each other in this degree about expanding on what we value. This is a really beneficial transit when Venus and Jupiter meet each other, because Venus is what we value. Jupiter is expanding on that, is defending our collective value system, and is good fortune and good luck. And so expanding on what we value, our material resources. And in Aquarius, it is about our collective resources and our relationships as well. In Aquarius, we are able to tap into it is not linear time in Aquarius, right? All things exist at the same time in terms of time, right? The past, the present, and the future, because it's instantaneous, right? Aquarius is the lightning bolt that travels through the that which is the cohesion of the collective, right? Water is so directly connected to Aquarius is the water bearer, and the collective is the water bearer, and it allows the power of the mind and the power of the inner eye, right? The third eye to move through the collective, right? Just like our nervous system needs water in order to function properly, because water is a conductor of electricity, and our nervous system is, in fact, an electrical system. It's electrical signals being sent that allows us to sense and perceive. Anyway, I could go on about the chemistry of that forever. The point is that in Aquarius, we, for as much as it is innovative and technologically advanced and futuristic, it's also because we are able to tap into the coherence of nature by our feeling, not necessarily by applying our knowledge or our intellect. I mean, we are applying our mental efficiency, but it's also applying it to be able to tap into that cosmic coherence. And so when Jupiter and Venus come together at the same time as this new moon tomorrow, it's really this ability to discover basic natural facts that allow us to plan in advance for action, so we can anticipate something. What are we going to anticipate when Venus and Jupiter are coming together? Well, we kind of got a little bit of a feel for it today when the moon met both of these points today. And so when they come together and they expand on our ability to anticipate what is coming, especially in terms of our relationships and our value. I think this is a really, this is just not even anticipation, of course, but almost just like our sensitivity to it is so on point and so expansive. And so, projects and issues around material resources can certainly be expanded upon, and we can get a real dose of good luck. But it's also just about reading the writing on the wall and anticipating it based on our ability to actually forecast some weather. The Sabian symbol is a barometer, which measures pressure. And when we are able to measure air pressure, we can forecast the future weather. It's the idea that the future circumstances already exist in the present moment, and that's why we are able to anticipate the future. And Venus is about our sensitivity as well, and so we're really going to get a large expansion and an activation of our sensitivity towards what's coming when it comes to our resources and what we value and our relationships and where we're headed as a culture and a society and as a collective. And this is a really beautiful transit to be along in conjunction with a new moon that is really about us stepping into a leader, a role of wisdom, right? Of everything we've learned over the past year, being now able to pass on deep wisdom as a result of what we've learned. Every experience has the potential to be, spiritually relevant, if that makes sense. So the new moon, that's pretty much the big transits for the new moon. And so I want to go week by week. And let's look at it, because what are the big transits that are happening through this cycle? Well, I will say, Mercury is going to go direct on the 20th at 12 degrees Aquarius. Saturn is going to, even before that, on the 17th, Saturn is going to square Uranus and Taurus. So we still have all of these squares, these fixed squares with all of this Aquarian energy and with the Taurus energy as well. And when the Sun and Venus specifically move into Pisces at the end of February, it is going to shift. And those elements of Venus, our sensitivity and our, who we love and what we value, and the Sun, the expression of who we are, our fulfillment of our personality. When they move into Pisces, it's going to be a much more smooth and harmonious connection with Mars and Uranus. So that's something we'll talk about in a little bit. And the squares will then come with the nodes, and it'll be a mutable square. So there'll be some adaptability there, but we're still going to be squaring in terms of how we feel with Pisces versus the nodes in the realm of mind and understanding. So we're still going to be contending with the dichotomy in some ways of these two different aspects of ourselves, which is the realm of the mind and action, and then the realm of feeling and receiving and intuition. And when the Sun and Venus specifically come into Pisces, it's going to change the game for sure. Because right now with Aquarius, we are riding that current of energy. And it is very masculine in the sense that we are using our intellect and our mental efficiency, and there's an aloofness and a detachment from the feeling of it all. So when we do come into Pisces, this is where people will start to, this is where this new moon intention is going to really be tested, especially when we have the full moon in Pisces and the moon in Virgo, because it will, once this Pisces energy starts to come online, this is the end of the cycle of the year, because this is the medium that the energy of Aquarius travels through. And so the boundaries start to dissolve. We start to lose ourselves a little bit. For as beautiful and inspiring and compassionate Pisces is, it's also the realm of addiction. This is where psychosis starts to really develop. This is where people start to feel even more like victims. And so you bet if there is any struggle right now with feeling sorry for yourself, feeling like a victim, feeling like you have no control, feeling like you're losing yourself, it's just going to be amplified. And people are going to start expressing themselves through that more so than they are now. And with Venus there, we're going to become very sensitive to that. We're going to really connect our value to that as well. But there's so much potential to really cultivate compassion and universal love and really connect to natural universal law in this state as well. But the martyrdom is very much a part of the Pisces archetype, and psychosis, addiction, and the really the strong connection to propaganda as well. And so we'll go through it week by week to show you the specific transits to keep an eye out for, to make sure that our boundaries are clear to us, so that we can allow ourselves to merge a little bit more. Because in Aquarius, again, it's all about we're not in the emotions, we are using the emotions as a medium for which these signals can move, right? And we can feel we each are a node in this network, and the energy of Aquarius moves through us, through the network. Well, when we come into Pisces, then we become the medium, the Akashic field in and of itself. And this can be really difficult for people, or it can be in a beautifully inspiring time as well. So this first week is we got Valentine's Day this weekend as well. So let's look at this weekend at the very least, because we have on the 13th. So the 13th is Saturday, Valentine's Day weekend. We have Mercury meeting. We have Mercury retrograde. Meeting Venus. Okay, two lovebirds. Two lovebirds sitting on a fence. This is a really beautiful transit to tell people you love them. And it's even more so is the idea that it is two lovebirds for sure, but it also more represents the blessings bestowed upon our personal achievements by the spiritually fulfilled consciousness, right? Inner happiness is the reward for making a valuable contribution. Well, this is going to be really strongly, we're going to really feel very, I would say, there's a lot of gratitude. We're going to tell people that we love them. It's going to be really easy to communicate how much we value the people in our life. It's going to be really easy, I think, to communicate to ourselves what we value about ourselves, and to really have a sensitivity and a mental perspective of what contributions we have made, and to feel that inner happiness for what we have done. It's actually quite beautiful in terms of a weekend for Valentine's Day. It's not really my thing, but I can see how that particular transit, especially Aquarius, because it is about our relationships and it's about our collective connection to each other. I can see how that would be a really lovely way to spend the weekend, being very supported, to tell people how they matter to you. So, and on the day of the 14th, we have, let's see here. We're moving forward. So Venus trines the nodes, the north node specifically. Okay, there's going to be a bunch of these throughout the time, because again, we're going to have Mercury go retrograde until the 20th and then come back, and it doesn't leave shadow until the day of the next new moon, which is March 13th. So Mercury's going to come back, is going to also trine the north node. Jupiter's going to trine the north node, and now Venus right now is in a trine to the north node. So what is a trine? It's a 120-degree angle. It is very structurally sound. It doesn't really it doesn't provide any tension, but it also doesn't provide any opportunity. It's just very balanced. And, 18 degrees of Aquarius, again, the unmasking of illusion. In Aquarius, the motives can't stay secret, because they just can't, because we're all connected to the same network in Aquarius. We're all, like I said, individual nodes of one network. And so we're all communicating in some way, shape, or form with each other, which is, and right now, the internet is a really good example of that. Venus, again, who we value, what we value, being sensitive to it. This is kind of an interesting, this is an interesting transit to have on Valentine's Day, just because with Venus, the goddess of love, in our relationships, when it's very possible that secrets become revealed on this day when we are anticipating maybe something else happening. So that's interesting. And the balance with the North Node, right? This is a direction of our collective soul's destiny, which is Gemini. It's about the adaptability and the curiosity that comes with engaging with all realm of idea and not really making a decision on anything. And being willing to be curious, right? Curious and exploratory, and to always consider both sides of the coin, right? The twins of Gemini, one is planted firmly in the past and tradition, and the other is planted firmly in the future and where we're headed. And so they are equal but opposite each other. So one second, I'm going to plug this in. They're equal but opposite each other, and that means that we are able to successfully use Gemini is to be able to be two-faced in some ways. But it's really about if we are in a position now where we're coming away from the South Node, right? This is where we've been. So collective belief systems and truth and collective values, if we want to alchemize our relationships to create something new, we have to be willing to move into a space where we are curious and adaptable when it comes to the realm of ideas, which is Gemini, which is why people struggle with Geminis being two-faced, because they can mentally adapt, right? They can communicate with all kinds of people because they don't make a decision on any one set of values. They're able to move fluidly from one side of the dialectic to the other in order to come to some sort of eventually conclusion, which is Sagittarius, is the opposite of Gemini. So we are still headed in this Gemini direction collectively. This is where our collective soul growth is in these ideas and being adaptable to ideas and curious. And so on this day, on Valentine's Day, our secret motives being publicly unmasked, our sensitivity to, how hard it is to keep secrets. I mean, the internet has nothing is ever really deleted. And when we are sensitive to our environment, it becomes even more so obvious, I would say. And so the trine here to Gemini is that it's important. And if we're able to retain our independence from the outside environment, we can concentrate on this specific issue. If we are not getting pulled into the drama outside of us, if we are not trying to engage with the information that we're unfamiliar with, it's about being in the world, but not of it. That is really very well structurally balanced in this moment with where Venus is in Aquarius, which is the unmasking of illusion. It's an interesting dynamic to have on Valentine's Day, but it does say that there's not real challenge here for this, right? This is about sticking with the people who speak our language and being able to interface with ideas within that context, as opposed to being caught up in the world outside of it. As we are sensitive to the secret motives and the illusions being unmasked, because it's inevitable, right? It's inevitable that happens in the Aquarian archetype. So interesting weekend. Ultimately, I think very lovely. And we also have Mercury's going to, for the first time, is going to also meet with, you can see here, Jupiter retrograde. So this is good news, right? It's not going to be fully formed yet. We might not have full mobility. We may not have all of the information, but it is going to expand on a possibility for kind of bypassing what normally would be a long, drawn-out natural process. Rather than going all the way around the mountain, this is cutting a hole right through it in a train tunnel. So keep in mind that Mercury is going to come back and and meet Jupiter again at a different degree. But right now, as we are going through this review period, as we are maybe not able to move as freely as we would like to, perhaps there is an opening here. There's an expansion here that allows us to get where we're going in a way that we may not have been able to before. Okay, so that's something to consider as well over the weekend. So as we move through the week, we're going to look at, Saturn. So on the 17th, Saturn is going to square Uranus, and this is going to be a really big headache. I'm just going to be real here. And on top of that, the moon is going to meet Uranus at the same time that this happens. So Saturn is powerful in Aquarius. Saturn is the original ruler of Aquarius before Uranus was even discovered. So we're looking at here these mental archetypes that seem very real to us, because Saturn is very real to us. It is about structure and form and responsibility, and the law of karma, right? And we are looking at mental archetypes and examples of where we are going, and it's going to seem very real to us. The headache here and the challenge is with Uranus consistently triggering transformation when it comes to the material world and our resources, and Taurus is giving us the future-oriented imagination is the path of our awakening. It is the anticipation, again, of the conditions that we know are going to happen because we see the natural cycles. And so the Sabian symbol is a sleigh without snow. We have our sled because we know the snow is coming. And so we use our imagination in order to, fantasize, essentially, when that snow comes, I got my sled, right? What do we have? And this is, again, with Venus and Jupiter, coming together in this ability to forecast what's happening because the conditions of it exist in the moment. Now, this isn't the conditions exist in the moment in Taurus, because now we're back to the physical, organic, natural process. It's like Saturn having one foot in the 5D, especially when it comes to where we are headed, the examples of what we're going to grow into, being in a real tense aspect to Uranus. That is, we may be able to imagine what's going to happen. We're still living in the reality where it hasn't happened yet. And this disruption. Uranus is always disrupting something because it's triggering our transformation on some level. And of course, you have the moon here. Look, you have the moon that's going to join Uranus. And so the moon is exalted in Taurus, and so it's happy here. It is familiar with this territory. It likes to be here. And so emotionally, we are also going to feel way more aligned with this. It may be disruptive and it may be radical and transformative, but we feel much better and more aligned with the natural process unfolding. This is where we feel comfortable, right? Moon in Taurus is comfortable. It feels comfortable and safe and secure, which is bizarre for Uranus, but compared to Saturn, which is very stern and very cold, and it's a lot of responsibility. We'd much rather deal with the disruption and be in the safe, secure place where we at least can imagine what's going to happen, as opposed to Saturn. It's kind of, like I said, it's cold and it's structured and it's form, and it is very much, no, this is what is going to be, but it's not quite real because it's a mental archetype. So whatever this represents, either some sort of digital currency that we may be we feel responsible to engage with, even though we still feel way more comfortable with the situation as it is, even though we see where we're going, or some other aspect of the social sphere or the collective organization. It could be any number of things, but it's definitely going to be a headache of some sort, and it's going to make us cranky and very serious. It's going to be very serious. And Moon and Uranus is going to be like, well, that's great, but I am way more, I'd rather just ride these waves. I'd rather just ride this out over here, because I'd rather live in the imagination part of it, knowing what's coming, rather than take this other aspect too seriously. So that's on the 17th. And then the next day, the sun moves into Pisces. And this is what we talked about, where we move from an expressive aspect of ourself that has to do with Aquarius, and then we start getting into the actual expressing through the feeling, the compassion, forgiveness, universal love, but also the addiction, right? The fantasy. Pisces is fantasy because it's everything, right? It is the dream state. It is the realm of psychosis. It is all of our karma, not just our own individual karma, but we are living through the collective karma. And this is where martyrdom and victimhood can really come out at this point. So when we move to the 19th here, this is the beginning of week 2. This is the first quarter square, the crisis in action. And we are seeing the moon in Gemini and the sun in Pisces. So we have a mutable square with the sun and the moon, crisis in action. What are we going to do? This is our first real challenge from that new moon point of overcoming our passions to teach from deep wisdom. So right away, we're going to feel like this caution here to protect ourselves, because that's the thing. When you start to kind of dissolve into the whole, you have to also realize that you leave yourself open to being poached in some ways by those that you're connected with. This is why it's so important to be aware of your boundaries and know where you begin and where other people end. The square with the moon, though, is really is asking us to have some innocence and some faith in what we're exploring and the ideas that we're considering. And that is going to be really hard when we are feeling such a strong identification with needing to ensure our future subsistence and to protect ourselves from aggression. The state of innocence that the moon is going to ask us to connect to is, we need this purity of heart if we really want to discover the wonders of the depth of the collective psyche. We can't do that if we're protecting ourselves. So right there, we're going to see this first challenge, because how can we teach deep wisdom from challenging experiences if we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to face some sort of adversity? And you do face that in Gemini, because that's part of the dichotomy of back and forth, is for every one side that starts to gain momentum, the other side will have to match that in an opposite way. And so there will inevitably be shifts in the balance, and it's about being open and innocent so that we can discover these things and be curious and explore. Oh, it's going to be so interesting. So on the same day, Venus and Mars are also in a square to each other. Venus in Aquarius, Mars in Taurus. And these are the goddess of love and the god of war. And one is about disciplining that inner energy and really putting it to good use. And the other is just like, I just want to protect what's valuable. Again, these two are playing off of each other, because the moon and Venus, both of these feminine qualities, are in air signs. And they are really showing us that we can discipline our energy, we can train ourselves, we can allow ourselves to be curious and to be efficient in our mind to put it to good use. Whereas the sun and Mars, both these masculine qualities, are just like, no, I need to protect what's mine. It's going to be interesting. People are going to start really pulling in at this point, and we're going to feel that challenge beginning in the second week. So, and that's the 19th. This is when the Supreme Court start ruling on some of these election cases If you don't know that already, they are set to at least start considering them on the 19th. So the 20th is when Mercury stations direct at 12 degrees Aquarius. And this is the degree where we realize fully that we're all at different levels, right? We're all at different levels. We're all equal in the eyes of God. That's the whole point of Aquarius. But at the same time, we're all individually on different parts of our journey, and we have to accept that, and we have to accept where we are and where other people are. That doesn't mean that we don't extend our hand. It doesn't mean that we aren't trying to, be available to assist others, but it does mean that we have to accept that everybody is in a different position on that stairway to heaven, right? And so when Mercury stations direct, it's going to be at this point. And so moving forward from here is going to be like a light bulb turning on. And then there's going to be swift movement after this, right? Movement's going to turn on. We're going to be moving around. We're going to be communicating, and it's going to be based on a whole new frame of reference in terms of where everybody is, where we are, and where we have to go still on our journey to a state of unity consciousness, okay? There's a natural progression here, and I've talked about this before, there's a difference between equality and equal opportunity and equity and collectivism. And this degree of Aquarius is about the fact that equality under God is very real, but we are not on the same position. And if you follow evolutionary astrology, that's because we have all come here to learn different things. So our position on this stairway going up is different because of what we are here to learn and what choices we have made. And so with that information, when Mercury moves direct, things are going to start moving. And then we're going to have a whole new perspective moving forward on the 20th. So on the 24th, Mars, this is going to be awesome. Mars is going to trine Pluto. This is some powerful, powerful energy. An Earth trine with Mars and Pluto, the two co-rulers of Scorpio. This is... So Mercury moves direct on the 20th, and then we are going to have a couple days where the moon is going to move through Gemini, it's going to move through Cancer, and then is going to come into Leo. So not only do we have this really intense, very transformative, very ambitious and confident Earth trine with Mars and Pluto, we're also going to have the moon in Leo. So we're going to also, emotionally be feeling very regal and sovereign. And then we have this incredible confidence and power behind us to do some really deep work when it comes to, our desires and the ritualization of our desires. Transformative, doing deep research on ourselves, having the courage to do deep research and to see into the underlying energy that is pervasive in all life that allows us to transform. This is a highly sexually potent and sensual transit as well. So keep that in mind on the 24th. The ritualization of our desires and the activation and the power that's going to go along with this transit is very, very powerful. This is definitely a time that you can really activate some very substantial things with this, and we can make some major transformations and have the courage and ambition behind it with Mars to really go after what we want. Really go after what we want, and use the deep power and realization that Pluto provides in order to to see the underlying current, the occult, the hidden energy of water, right? That and emotional content, and we have Mars also behind it that is, like I said, ambitious and courageous and really confident to go after what we want. Not from a position of control, but of a position of emotional content. I talked about that in one of the transmissions. Wow. The 24th, I would definitely mark that on your calendar. That is a big transit. On the 25th is when Venus comes into Pisces then. So then we have Then we have Venus moving into Pisces as well. And so at this point, this is so beautiful because we become incredibly sensitive, and the artistic expression, wanting to create beautiful artistic things. The muse is really connected to Venus and the goddess in Pisces. It's really because she's so still connected to the physical and material world that it's we can really produce and be very artistically inspired when she moves into Pisces. And the love, right? The universal love and the compassion that we can feel in our relationships is really strong when she moves into Pisces. We're also going to have the sun in a sextile to Uranus, as I talked about. So we're really getting a call to action, or a summons in some ways, and identifying ourselves through our role, right? We are connecting to the cosmic consciousness in Pisces like this. And so we can really start to see our role in the larger picture, and be able to anticipate where we're going using our imagination, realizing that our awakening is just a matter of our ability to imagine it, right? And we can manifest it if we actually believe that it can happen and that we know it can happen, and we'll feel such a strong sense of identity with our role within this process of being called up to participate in this process. And then of course Jupiter also is going to, as you'll see here, is soon going to be in a trine to the North Node again. And then on the 27th is the full moon. The sun in Pisces, the moon in Virgo. And it's a couple hours back here. Let's look at that. So we're looking at 9 degrees of Pisces, 9 degrees of Virgo. This is a culmination point, and you can see how everything is really, really situated on this side of the chart, except where the moon is kind of drawing all this energy. And of course, Virgo is about being very analytical, being very meticulous and organized, and really doing the works. And when we're talking about our emotional realm, we're talking about doing the emotional work to get ourselves organized, to get ourselves, to make sure our emotions are where they're supposed to be, and that we are doing the work on ourselves. So this culmination point with this full moon with Pisces and Virgo is also going to square, soon after. Well, actually, that's not until later. My bad. It's a culmination, and it also shows us what we need to let go of and release. And this is a quickening here. This is a quickening for the sake of the collective, putting all of our energy towards something with the sun, right? We're going to really identify ourselves through putting all of our resources into getting to a certain destination. And it's really going to reflect the part of ourselves that just desperately wants to express our unique individuality to express our individualized sense of value, regardless of the tradition or regardless of anything. It's like being an expressionist painter. It's like being as unique as possible just for the sake of being unique. And it's going to be this mobilization of energy and skill in the drive for success that's really gonna illuminate this urge to express ourselves. And again, remember, it comes back to where we started with the new moon, which is overcoming our passions in order to teach from deep wisdom. So there's something about this full moon at the end of the month that is going to show us what we need to let go of in order to do that, and also show us the culmination of all of that. The urge to express our individualized sense of value. How can we do that in a way that is not being overcome by our passions and being so focused on mobilizing our energy and skill and being driven that we then become overcome by our passions again. So we're going to find that balance point with this full moon. And that moves us into week 3. Mercury is moving direct at this point and is going to is going to, let's see here, we're looking at the 2nd. Mercury is now moving direct. As you can see, is also going to trine the nodes. Again, a lot of this trining the node, a lot of this really structural balance with where we are collectively heading on a soul level with all of this Aquarius energy, because it's really about our mind and our ability to engage with ideas in a way that we can be kind of detached from emotionally with Aquarius. Now, the 3rd, this is when, this is a day, right? This is a day that keeps coming up. We have a moon in Scorpio, and we also have Mars entering Gemini now. So this is a quickening in and of itself, right? This is where ambition and confidence and this warrior action energy in terms of our mind and our thoughts, and again, the short-term travel, the information communication is really going to start getting some steam behind it, right? Well, of course, we have the moon in Scorpio, which is at her fall position. So that is also where we could really, oh boy. It's hard to say what's going to happen this far out, because just like predicting the weather, you can't really predict it, because any change in the system, any change in the variable is going to change potentially the whole system. So it's really a dynamic process that you have to kind of work with as you go along. But I will say that, our words and our speech and our communication with some Mars behind it is going to become very activated. And with a moon in Scorpio, which has the tendency to get very deep and brooding, we should be mindful of the speech that comes out of our mouths at this time. The next, and then from here is when Mercury meets Jupiter going direct. This is, let's see here, 18 degrees. Is this the watchdog? No, this is the unmasking. Again, you can see that this particular archetype and degree of Aquarius comes up over and over and over. 17 degrees, okay? The unmasking of illusions. And again, more good news. This time Mercury is going direct with Jupiter. So this is like definitely an expansion on information and communication, and it has to do with the unmasking of illusions. Wow. This is on the 4th. So the 3rd and the 4th, really pay attention. What I'd said before about the 24th February with Mars trine Pluto, that's another really big date. And then we're going to move here into the last week, because we're going to come into the 5th is going to have, the 3rd quarter square, right? So we're going to have the sun is not only going to square the moon, but it's also going to square the nodes at the same time. And so this is a very karmic, mutable square. We're going to find that it's about the quiet inspiration. We're going to find inspiration in the quiet. That's where the sun is, right? Being able to connect to that universal consciousness. We're going to have to really quiet ourselves and our mind, especially with a square to the nodes that are all about the mind and understanding. That's going to be a moment where we're really going to have some discipline in some ways in order to allow ourselves to get into a flow state and be inspired by something that is coming from our soul as opposed to coming from our mind. And that's going to be very difficult because it's going to be loud. It's going to be loud and it's going to be passionate when you're talking about Gemini and Sagittarius. So that's on the 5th, the 3rd quarter square plus the square to the nodes. So again, early March is going to be something else, I'll tell you what. And then Venus is going to come right behind that on the 9th and do the same thing. She's going to come in and square the nodes. And so this is where the artistic inspiration, something that we can bring into physical form, be inspired to create with our resources, is going to come in strong as well. Again, it's going to be with our relationships. How can we be inspired creatively? How are we going to be inspired spiritually in our relationships and our resources when it is in square to such a very loud and passionate realm of mind and understanding with the nodes? And the thing about the nodes is they're karmic, right? They represent where we are being drawn to, and so they will be loud, and it'll have a lot to do with where we've been and where we're going. And from here, this is when, so another date to really mention here, the 10th of March, the sun is going to conjunct Neptune, 20 to 21 degrees Pisces, okay? This is where we identify ourselves through the collective unconscious. And so we are very susceptible to false information. We are, and propaganda and false prophets, right? We really want to connect, especially Neptune in Pisces. We want to merge with the collective unconscious and the mystical experience. And we're going to personally identify with this. And with the collective, our intuition is going to be very heightened. And this particular degree is about a tactile sensation. There's going to be so little to attach to other than a very vague and very innocent hope in something good and innocent coming forward. We will have nothing to connect to other than something. Like I said, it's so vague, and it's not based in anything that we can wrap our minds around, but we are going to identify with it when the sun comes to meet Neptune, okay? And right from here on the 13th, which is the new moon, so we're also going to have a dark moon in Aquarius coming into this end of this cycle. And then from here on the 13th, the moon will move into Pisces, is also going to conjunct Neptune, along with, it's going to move past, it will have already moved past here, but Venus is going to conjunct Neptune at the same location. So again, this is going to be much more about material value, more sensitive, but also has some sort of boundary to it with Venus, because it's about her senses and our relationships. And again, it's going to meet with Neptune, and it's going to be, our relationships and our material world is really going to be connected to this mystical and collective experience that has much more to do with a very innocent hope of a beautiful future that's based on just very, very basic an innocent tactile sensation. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, the last decan of Pisces is the 10 of Cups, and so there is satiation almost. And so we know the cycle is ending because now we're so close to the spring equinox. But this is the time too where we start to really dissipate, and we have so little to go on other than just almost blind faith at this point. And so people are really going to be tested, and this is a real possibility of getting pulled into, like I said, the false prophets and the propaganda, and Venus specifically, I think, is going to help us anchor into something material, like our relationships and our material realm. But the sun, when it meets Neptune, is like we are going to full on identify with these mystical and collective experiences, and we have to be very careful that we are not getting distracted or pulled into the illusion or the hologram, because that's a very distinct possibility. And then we come into the new moon on the 13th, which is also the same day that Mercury exits shadow. And then that's really going to be, because that's going to be the end of Aquarius, and a couple days after that Mercury is going to move into Pisces as well. And so then it's just going to be coming into the equinox, and we're going to have a lot of energy meeting Chiron, Venus, the moon, and the sun meeting Chiron. And so we're going to get a nice dose of identification and emotional connection and sensitivity to our victim wounding, and it's going to be necessary. It's going to be rough, but it's going to be necessary. So I know that's a lot of information, but that's the new moon, starting on the 11th, the new moon in Aquarius. So I invite you to come back and listen to this If you need to, of course, I'll be coming every week, every day, really, with information, and it's going to evolve as we go along and we make choices of how we interact with this energy. But I really appreciate you being here, sticking by. I haven't even looked at the chat, so maybe I'll do that right now, see what's going on here, if anybody's even here. No, it doesn't look like it, but that's okay. Because I know that people have things going on, and the impeachment trial, I think, is still happening, but I'm not entirely sure. So you can certainly check this out when you have time. And thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow for the daily medicine transmission for the new moon. So it's a great opportunity right now to get your intentions in line and see what it is that you want to, how you want to best utilize your experiences in order to teach deep wisdom over the coming weeks and months. And so happy Chinese New Year, happy new moon. I'll see you all tomorrow.